Okay, so for question 1, we've got 3 states of matter, X, Y, and Z, and 3 state changes, which would be numbered 1 to 3. So first of all, I would just try and identify them to start off with, make sure you know which one's which. So over here we've got Y, which is going to be a solid. We can see the regular arrangement of the particles. Z, where the particles are not regularly arranged, but they're still quite close together, is going to be the liquid. And then that leaves us with X being the gas. Okay, and the state change, if we follow the arrow, so going from a solid to a liquid is going to be melting. From a gas to a liquid is going to be condensation. Okay, and then last of all, from a gas to a solid, we call deposition, which is the opposite of sublimation. Okay, and then if we have a look at what we're being asked to do, we have to actually choose a state, X, Y, or Z, to give the letter for which one has no definite shape but does have a definite volume. And if we look at the diagrams, okay, you're hopefully drawn towards this one, the liquid, where it definitely has a set volume. We can see that it's filling up a certain amount of the area, okay, but it doesn't really have a set shape. Liquids, if you pour them into different containers, they just take the shape of the container. So it's going to be Z. Which one has the highest density? Well, for this, you've got to think about the number of particles packed into a space. And obviously with the solid, you can see here they're very tightly packed. There's not much space between the particles. That would give it a very high density. So that would be Y. Has the weakest attractive forces between its particles. Well, if we have a look at the diagram, we can see the particles that are the furthest apart are the gas ones up here. And they actually have very weak attractive forces between them. So they're the weakest ones of all. Okay, so that's going to be X. And which one can be compressed? Well, if you look at them again, like think about compression means squashing the particles together. And so up here with the gas, there's the most space between the particles, so it's going to be the easiest to compress. Liquids are quite hard to compress because there's not that much space between the particles. And solids, really, you can't really compress them very much at all because there's just no space between the particles. So that one's going to be X as well. Moving on to part 2 then, you have to name the state changes 1 and 2. Well, we kind of did that in my little chat at the beginning. So number 1 was melting, going from a solid to a liquid. Okay, so we'll write that in. Melting. And number 2 was going from a gas to a liquid. So that one would be condensation or condensing. And last of all, we have to name a colourless gas that can undergo the state change number 3. Now, it had to be a colourless gas. Okay, and in this case, the example that we've learned is carbon dioxide, or we sometimes call it dry ice. And that can undergo sublimation, but obviously if it's going from a gas to a solid, we call it deposition. Lots of people wrote iodine, but iodine isn't colourless, it's purple. And so that means that wouldn't answer this question because they specifically asked for colourless gas. Okay, and that's it.